Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 3 o'clock. We do have a quorum, although we're missing Councilmember Jones, not Jones, Councilmember King and Mayor Pro Tem Waddell. They're attending to family matters this afternoon, but with the other three council members, we have a quorum to proceed with business. So the first thing we are going to do, as we always do, is start with an invocation followed by the pledges of allegiance. And joining us this morning is Scott Vermeer, who is the pastor of the church at Horseshoe Bay. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Well, Lord, we are grateful for leadership. We know leadership is tough, but we know it's necessary. And so we ask that you give our leaders wisdom to be able to see the problems that our community faces from every angle. And we pray that you would give them all kinds of courage to step into these problems and help provide solutions that will be best for all. And over all this, Lord, we pray that they would work together in harmony to bring this community the joy that it seeks, to be a place of rest and a place of home for many who are here and also those who will come. So use this meeting for your glory, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. I think we have a lot that we're going to be celebrating this afternoon, and we have always wonderful reasons to celebrate when we have staff members to recognize and the work of different people that we want to bring forward to the community. So the first thing that we have to do is talk about the municipal court week. Where are the municipal court people? Okay, there's Susan. Is Beth here? And Molly is here. So Molly, why don't you?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. The Municipal Courts Week is a week prescribed by the 88th Texas Legislature in House Resolution 75, dedicated to appreciating the contributions that the Texas municipal courts make to the safety and well-being of our community. Municipal courts in Texas play a vital role in preserving public safety, protecting the quality of life for area residents, and deterring future criminal behavior, and is indeed fitting to recognize municipal judges and court support personnel for their exemplary dedication to the communities they serve. The Municipal Court of Record number 1 in the city of Horseshoe Bay is served by Judge Kevin R. Madison, Prosecutor Eddie Arredondo, Court Administrator Beth Kuntz, Court Clerk Susan White, and hold on, I lost my place, and Bailiff Officer Chad Mercer. These dedicated professionals work to ensure the fair administration of justice. Please join me in thanking Judge Madison, Eddie Arredondo, Beth Kuntz, Susan White, and Chad Mercer for their outstanding service in our municipal court. Beth wanted me to announce one thing. She's on vacation. On Friday, November 8th, our court will be hosting a coffee to which we will be inviting the community. We held an open house last year and we're pleased with the response. This year, the coffee will begin at 10 a.m. and we will have a presentation by Monique Campa of Texas DOT on impaired driving. We will offer beverages and baked goods by Beth, and those are always very good, and fruit. She also wanted me to mention that TxDOT is bringing drunk goggles. They will simulate what it is like to be inebriated and having difficulty performing simple tasks. It is very eye-opening. I hope to see you here on November 8th at the 10th. And there was a couple accomplishments she wanted me to talk about for the court. The court earned a Municipal Traffic Safety Award on April 24th for our promotion of child safety in all things wheels. We hosted our first Municipal Courts Week open house. Beth Kuntz, the court administrator, passed all 3 parts of Level 3 certification, and we continue to review old warrant cases for possible dismissal. Our court processed 29% less cases in 24. It went in last year it's a 616 to 435, and the decrease is seen in the state law offenses and a slight dip in the number of city code violations. Thankfully, we did not have any theft or assault cases this year, and the number of cases involving juveniles, minors consuming and possessing alcohol is down 76%. The majority of our processed cases for offenses of driving without a valid driver's license, speeding, and not having valid automobile insurance. We do believe a high percentage of these defendants are construction workers employed in Horseshoe Bay for building projects.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's very reassuring, the improvement in crime statistics that you shared with us, Molly. And I think that's a testament to the good work that's done by our Horseshoe Bay Police Department. So I want to thank you all for what you do as well. This court meets in this building and this room, and it's open to the public. And if you've never been to a municipal court hearing, it's something that's very interesting. And I hope everybody will think about coming on November the 8th and seeing what they have to offer. So this group of people works very hard. So do you want to, I was going to read this part of this proclamation, and then do you want a picture? Okay. So proclamation for the city of Horseshoe Bay declaring the week of November 4th through 8th as Municipal Court Week. Municipal courts play a significant role in preserving public safety and promoting quality of life in Texas. More people are in contact with municipal courts than all other courts combined, and the public impression of the Texas judicial system is largely dependent on the public's experience in municipal court. And I can tell you ours is very favorable. Court Administrator Beth Kuntz, Court Clerk Susan White are entrusted with the responsibility of coordinating municipal court activities for the city of Horseshoe Bay, and we hereby recognize the vital service they perform and their dedication to our community. Therefore, the mayor and the city council of the city of Horseshoe Bay proclaim the following: November 4th through 8th shall hereby be known as Municipal Court Week in Horseshoe Bay. The city calls upon the citizens to recognize this week by thanking our municipal court staff for their outstanding service. So thank you very much. We can Photoshop Beth in. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda, and I guess, Chad, you're going to be back up there again, is proclaiming the month of October 2024 as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month. So Roy Jamber is going to talk to us about that.
I'm sure there's probably either a state or a national origin for this proclamation declaring October Code Enforcement Appreciation Month. But all I could find in the Horseshoe Bay website was that we've done it at least 1 year prior. So I didn't have to start from scratch. The thing I'd like to recognize, it is a bit unusual for this jurisdiction, is not only do these people deal with nuisance violations, which is a big enough load in and of itself, but they're also involved in what is in other jurisdictions referred to as a zoning administrator. They look for all the zoning violations, and they're also part of the certificate of occupancy review, so that before a building is issued a certificate of occupancy, they're involved with doing an inspection to make sure that all of those various ordinances are complied with. And these folks, even in other jurisdictions who report nuisance violations, this may be the most thankless job that I've ever heard of, because quite frankly, even first responders are occasionally get some level of appreciation from the people they assist. To the best of my knowledge, code enforcement officials don't do anything but make people angry. And in Horseshoe Bay, that includes contractors. So they have an awful lot of grief, and I'll be honest, they do an amazing job, and the fact that they're not miserable and they all need, counseling is amazing to me. But I'd like to specifically recognize Chad, who's the code enforcement supervisor, as well as his two very energetic subordinates, which is Celeste and Mac. They do an excellent job.
Stand up, Celeste.
Stand up.
Yeah. Max, stand up.
And it is an incredibly thankless job.
Yep.
So the fact that they're keeping the ordinances reasonably enforced, even the people that call in the complaints, they want to blame them for if they're dissatisfied with the way the court dispenses the violation, but that's really not their job. Their job is just to get them cited and let the chips fall where they may.
Thank you. Thank you guys for what you do. So, the proclamation reads in part, code enforcement officers provide for the safety and welfare of the citizens. And I think that's a key thing that we all need to keep in mind, that their job is for the safety and welfare of the citizens. They are often have challenging and demanding obligations, and they often do not receive adequate recognition for the job they do in improving the living and working conditions for the residents and businesses of a community. They're dedicated, highly qualified professionals who share the goals of preventing neighborhood deterioration, enhancing and ensuring safety, and preserving property values through their knowledge and application of a wide variety of ordinances and codes. The City of Horseshoe Bay recognizes the outstanding service provided by city's code enforcement staff, Chad Mercer, Code Enforcement Officer and Supervisor, Mac Montoya, Code Compliance Officer, and Celeste Cost, Code Compliance Officer. Therefore, the Mayor and City Council of Horseshoe Bay proclaim the following October 24, 2024 shall be known as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Month. Thank you. We're going to appreciate you all the month, though. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Announcements and staff recognition. Jeff, you have some new people to introduce us to?
The new plant operator trainee is Nicholas McCain. Are you here? Would you stand up? All right. He is the brother of Lightning McQueen. No, all kidding aside, this gentleman that joined us is a U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, and he is a Purple Heart recipient, and is a valedictorian of his class at the Texas Tech University, and father of three. And,
Wow.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. We're awfully lucky to have you, it sounds like. Thank you. And then Jeff and Ray, who's going to talk about Jackie Bob?
Yeah, we're going to do this together.
Okay.
Okay, Jackie Bob, come on up here. Here, I'll let you do
I can't believe he's only been here for 5 years.
Yeah, I know.
I thought he'd been here forever.
I will start off by saying Jackie Bob was here in 1998 when I came here. He was a supervisor, and he trained me basically on everything that I had to know about field operations, with grinder pumps, all that stuff was new to me. This man knew it all, and taught me just a whole lot. And when he retired, and he decided he was going to come back to Hill Country, and he saw an ad we had for a position in the Reclamation Center. He applied for it just to keep busy, and of course he's an icon out there. He's really shaped the place up, and we're doing some expansion out there, and he's a project manager on that. And, I just can't say enough about this man. He's been like a brother to me. And of all the water system, that he knew and has known, we still go to him and ask him questions about where valves are and stuff like that. And so, I'm going to let you go ahead and read the rest of your recognition here.
Mayor, Council, Jackie Bob started his career in 1993
2006, serving as LBJ Mud field operator and finished as the field supervisor for 9 years. Jackie Bob went on to serve for 9 years as a public works director at the city of Rolling Wood, Texas. Jackie Bob retired and returned to the Highland Lakes area, returning to work for the city of Horseshoe Bay in October of 2019 as a lead recycling center monitor. Jackie Bob was instrumental in the creation of the recycling center for the LBJ Mud and is now currently the city of Horseshoe Bay Recycling Center and brush collection site supervisor. Jackie Bob was a wealth and has a wealth of knowledge stored in his vast memory bank on the water and wastewater distribution infrastructure, which he provides to field and plant operators to this day. Jackie Bob has implemented and refined the recycling center process for the city of Horseshoe Bay and the citizens to ensure the smooth and efficient operation of the recycling center and brush collection with roughly 2,000 visitors a month on average. Jackie Bob has managed an average of 14,000 cubic yards of brush collection every year. In Jackie Bob's words, he said, when you give your 2 sons 3 acres next door to yourself, that's what happens. You have to enjoy your family. So I want to say this outside of this proclamation here for Jackie Bob is that he started tracking numbers out there since he's come back to the city of Horseshoe Bay, which has again resulted in the efficiency out at the recycling center. So again, with that and your monthly reports that he submits to us and keeping everybody on track out there, we appreciate you very much, Jackie Bob. Thank you so much for your service, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, and Sandra Nash, or is it, oh, I'm sorry, Sandra, Jeff, and who's going to talk? Jeff and Roy? Roy Jambor, Director of Developmental Services. Another one that I can't believe she's only been here 5 years.
She's made such a mark, and before he starts, I'll also say that Sandra is very active, and we have many things to do. One of the things that she's working with us now is on our landscape plan for the city center and the parks that we're going to have around there. She has a degree in landscape architect, very talented in that. We heard in Big A, Hopkins, a master gardener. We were well taken care of. Very much appreciate work.
I'm going to brag on the same topic. Even though her primary job is probably to keep me a little more sane than I would otherwise, she does, and I'm going to brag a little bit about her education. You know, some people can belittle that, but I was an architecture student at roughly the same time, and I can assure you that at the time that Sandra graduated from LSU, it was one of the finest landscape architecture programs in the country. You didn't even get into that program unless you were an outstanding student. And to the best of my knowledge, everybody that graduated from that program in that era is an outstanding designer in their own right. And she brings a lot of that skill, not just in doing the landscape work for city projects, but in her reviews on development reviews. You know, that's a skill that you're basically not paying for, because I promise you not every planner has that skill. And I can tell you that I appreciate it because it takes a huge load off me from having to do that, because normally I'm the one that gets stuck with that job. So,
Well, I know that the contractor community enjoys working with Sandra, and she's always very helpful to the people who come in and giving them direction and keeping things running smoothly. So we appreciate you, Sandra. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Chief Fowler, we're about to get all the firefighters' pins. Is that right?
Mayor, we will be caught up on the A shift, but we did hire a new member last week.
Well, I'm
So
glad
when
you
he
hired a
gets-
new member.
When he
That's
gets
okay.
off of probation in 6 months, we'll have another one.
Good, good.
So, firefighters Bryant, Landers, and White, please step forward. We're going to administer the oath of office, and then afterwards, they're going to have family members do the badge pinning for them.
Okay.
So we'll have quite a group up here. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Texas, and obey all the laws thereof. Furthermore, I am a qualified and certified firefighter per the standards of the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, able to perform my duties and responsibilities entrusted to me, and that I will faithfully discharge these duties for the city of Horseshoe Bay. Congratulations, and your family can come up and do the badge pinning.
You know, we've done this for 3 months in a row, and this is the first time that we haven't had a call either immediately before or during the pinning ceremony. So you guys must be doing something right. I'm just going to comment that the wife seems to know what she's doing, and you guys seem to be fumbling. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you. Carrie? You want to talk about this?
The applications, if you want me to, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Fowler. The next item on the agenda is applications are being accepted for city boards, commissions, and committees for appointment to be made in December 2024. And I'm going to let Carrie Craig, the administrative, well, I guess this would be your city secretary hat, right? Okay, that would be. She's also a legislative director of legislative services, which is the one we're really relying on you for. But tell us what we're doing here.
Okay, we're starting the annual process for appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. The deadline for citizens to apply to volunteer is November 1st. This year, council will be appointing 3 members to the Planning and Zoning Commission and 2 regular members and 2 alternate members to the Board of Adjustment. So if you're interested, you can call my office or you can go on our website and fill out the application there. I can answer any questions that you may have about them, but we encourage everyone to apply and be part of the process.
Thank you. Carrie, is that microphone turned on?
It's lit up, should be.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm just really quiet.
No, it's just nobody's very loud. I just couldn't hear really anybody.
See if
So,
Phyllis can adjust.
okay. Okay, so we're moving on to public comments. And the first public comment I have is from Gilbert Bennett, who is our Llano County EMC director and just came from the Llano County Commissioners Court where I saw him this morning. And are you going to report on that?
Good afternoon. Yes, I am. Mayor and council members, just want to say thank you. You guys were tasked with approving the Hazard Mitigation Action Plan, which it started 2 years ago. And if you've ever had to deal with FEMA, you know the process. So it's one of those that took a long time going back and forth. But we finally have the approval, and our plan is good until 2029. So we have 5 years to play here and make things happen for the city of Horseshoe Bay. and I want you to know that it's a living document, so we can make any changes. If you want to see anything approved or put into the hazard mitigation plan, it's just a matter of typing it up and submitting it to Tetra Tech. We're able to do that. The burn ban has been implemented today. We are under a fire weather watch, just to let you know. And the state of Texas, Governor Abbott put on a proclamation, and they're keeping an eye on the fire weather here in our area. So just be vigilant about being out there. So we'll keep our eye on it as well. Once again, just thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you
Any
very much,
questions for
Gilbert.
me? Let me know.
Any questions for
Nope,
Gilbert?
you're good. Thank you.
Okay, and Felicia McHugh from wants to speak about the Reclamation Center. Oh, it's not?
It's okay. I'll take it. It's better than the alternative.
What is your name?
Ferris Mike you?
Ferris. Oh, okay. Ferris McHugh. Well,
Hey,
So-
good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. It's great to be here. Honored to be here. Glad to be here. My name is Ferris Mike you. I live on the Hills Road in Horseshoe Bay. My neighbors are with me as well, Mr. and Mrs. Stanton. My family and I moved here back in 2001, and we from Austin. My wife's from Austin. I'm from San Antonio, and we been living in Horseshoe Bay since 2001. Just a little background. We live directly next door to the city reclamation facility, the center. It's been there for a while. It's not new. It's not freshly built. So we're aware of the facility. This matter is just to bring some attention to the city, possibly an educational experience for the city manager, day-to-day operations. But we are here on behalf of the Hills and the Gulfview Estates just to get some questions possibly answered. We've noticed in the last 6 months, give or take, that we've had an increase of infrastructure noises that are ranging throughout the day. It's been either a pump. We've been told several different stories. We're not holding to one, but we're getting a lot of information that we would like to maybe get some clarification on. So we've been told that there's been it's a pump, it's a blower, a valve. Those are the three infrastructure components that we've been given examples of not working properly. And then we've also getting told that this could be the case. Absolutely. It's on back order, inflammation, not inflammation, excuse me. What's the word I'm looking for? Thank you. Regardless, it's not just me solely. I'm representing probably 10 homes directly in my neighborhood.
okay.
And we wanted to present ourselves just
Thank you.
and enlighten the city, and if there's some further discussion we can have.
I should have clarified public comments before we started with under the Open Meetings Act. When someone comes before the council and makes a public comment under this section of the agenda, the council doesn't engage in a conversation because we're only allowed to speak back to topics that are on the agenda. Because if we talk about something that's not on the agenda, someone who may have been interested in that and it wasn't posted on the agenda that was made public, then they would have come. But so we are not allowed to discuss topics. However, I believe I can ask for clarification from the staff on this issue. I'm familiar with it,
Sure.
and I want to be sure that we're providing the correct information. And so I'm going to ask.
Is it okay if I just get to finish?
Well, we have a 3-minute limit. Are we there? I mean, I took part of this time. Go ahead and yeah.
So just real quick, threefold. It's contractors on the Hills Road at 5 a.m., 5:30 in the morning, blocking the northbound traffic. It's lights into houses. It's working might as well all be hours of the day. And then the nuisance would be the noise ordinance, which doesn't quite hit the 85 decibels as described in law, but it is longer than 15 minutes. And that's the threefold. But go ahead. Thank you for your time.
Surely. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions further after these gentlemen speak, then you're welcome to contact them in their office, and they'll come out and visit with you and try to get your questions answered. So yes, Rick Williams.
Yep, I'm Rick Williams, Assistant City Manager, so I'm over the utilities section too, and then Ray, the acting
Rick.
director. Okay, y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's twofold thing to that. Number one is there is a project currently going on with contractors to remove sludge from a previous sewer treatment plant project. So that would be the trucks. However, they are restricted by contract. We restrict them to 7 to 7. So if they're there before 7, that is an issue that we need to look into, and we'll make sure to rectify that. Absolutely. The second one is a blower. It has a pump and a valve. So it's 3 ways to describe one thing, essentially. So there is a blower that is out. By state law, we're required to have a redundant backup. So we're stuck in a position where it's 12 weeks out. And so they have a secondary one that's noisier. My understanding is operationally they're running the louder one during the day so they can run the quieter one at night, but without putting too much of a burden on one of them and overheating it, creating a secondary issue. So further than that, that's kind of the update I have. We do have staff members here, though, that will absolutely make sure to reach out to you all.
Thank you. Is it possible that we can meet and exchange information?
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rick Williams, his contact information is on the city website. And, if you send him an email, he will respond to you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure,
Very
thank
helpful.
you. Appreciate you being here. Okay, under presentations, this is no action. This is just a informational presentation. And the first issue is the drainage criteria manual.
Hello, my name is Kelly Dillard, and I work for Walter P. Moore. And the town of Trophy Club has hired my firm to prepare drainage criteria for the city of Horseshoe Bay. Town of Horseshoe Bay. So the thing that is significant about this is that when development comes into this community, we now have written regulations for how that development has to work. And so we're really not going to talk about it today. I just want you guys to know what is in it so that if anyone asks you about it, you can refer to this presentation that gives you kind of the big overview of what's going on.
Okay.
So the thing that is really important about it is that prior to us developing this drainage criteria manual, the ordinance for Horseshoe Bay said that drainage design defaulted to the city of Austin requirements. And the city of Austin is very different than the city of Horseshoe Bay. And so this is really a nod towards giving the city something that the town something that is specific to your needs in your area. Thank you. So the things that are important about this is that it protects the existing development and it guides future development. And the reason that's so important is that existing development started in the downstream part of your community closest to the lake. And as new development comes in, that drainage is heading for the lake. So we want to make sure that our drainage criteria manual asks people to be cognizant of the fact that they have downstream neighbors who are going to have an impact potentially from development. And so these, like I said, are specific to Horseshoe Bay. They're intended really to be used by the engineers who design development in your community. Most of the chapters that are in here are for developments of more than 1 or 2 residential structures. We've added a 6th chapter that I'm going to talk about that is also for single family development when it comes in, because a lot of the work that you guys get is development of one lot at a time. And then they weren't having to follow what the city has said is important to the community. So we have worked hand in hand with LCRA on this. They're doing water quality reviews right now. And Walter P. Moore is doing engineering reviews. That's kind of the way that's working. So the way that the sections work is really kind of how you would design a development. And we're talking about the drainage works in a development. So we kind of put an introduction together that sets expectations for everybody who's going to use it. Then hydrology is the first thing that you do. And that's really a look at how much water is supposed to be designed to be carried and to be expected and to be taken care of in this community. The next one, chapter 3, is hydraulics. And that's once you've decided how much water you're going to design for, how far does that water spread out? Where does it go? And what does that look like? Closed systems hydraulics is for the up in a neighborhood, either the storm drain system or the bar ditch system that is in place or put in place at the time that development happens. And the intent here is that whether you're building only bar ditches or whether you're building storm drain, you need to be sure that what you're putting in as a developer is something that's going to look after the health, safety, and welfare of this community. Detention, there's some real interesting parts to detention. And the thing is that most people, when they are trying to mitigate the impact of the increased impervious cover, so the additional hydrology that comes from developing, most people say, we're going to just put in a detention basin and call it good. This asks people to look and see, does your site really need detention or does it not? And so that's what's in there. And then chapter 6 is the one that we just added. And we added that really as a way to kind of help the town reviewers. As they're reviewing those single family lots, there are a lot of things that happen that really are not conducive to whoever's going to buy that lot or the people who are downstream of that lot. And so this really addresses that as well. So section 1, the thing that I think is super important about this, I have done some expert witnessing when I've written criteria manuals, and this has, if that third bullet says design responsibility. And so it says the city has the right to look at your development when it's coming in, review it, make comments, make sure you are doing things correctly. It does not have the responsibility for that. That responsibility rests with the design engineer. And I think that's a really important part of a criteria manual. So we put in a big definitions section in case anyone had questions, but my expectation is that the people who are using this manual are very familiar with subdivision design and know what they're looking at and looking for. So hydrology, the red box on the right shows you that for a 100-year storm, which means that there's a 1% chance in any given year that much rain is coming. Travis County is 12.5 inches. Burnett County is 11.3 and Llano is 10.2. So this area has a lower ultimate discharge. And what was happening is that developments that were defaulting to Austin's criteria were having to size larger systems than were needed. So we've put this in to say we're requiring you to do things that are specific and correct for our area. Hydraulics, like I said, is how far does it go? One of the things that we've talked about a lot is that this area has a lot of natural beauty, and we don't want people to just put in a storm drain system that's going to take that water and get it as fast as it can to where it's going. We want to say natural channels and protection of the existing vegetation is important. And so that's in here. We've talked about drainage easements. Drainage easements are needed so that if future improvements need to happen, you've got an easement. And it also gives the community the right, the city staff, to come in and do maintenance if they need to in an area. It requires that someone look not just at the 100-year, and where that's really important is that if you design a detention basin to mitigate the 100-year and you get a 1-year storm or a 2-year storm, which is the more common storms, that's going to run right through that basin, and the people downstream are still going to have an issue. And so we've put in a requirement for people to look at smaller storms, the ones that happen more frequently, as well as the larger ones. And then that final bullet requires an analysis of velocity, is a nod toward potential erosion from future development. 4 is the closed systems. The things that are important in my mind out of here is this is your local systems. This is your bar ditches and storm drains. It sets a minimum finished floor elevation so that when somebody comes in and develops, they're going to make sure that the house that they're building will be safe once it's turned over to the owner. And I think that's really important. And then it gives that requirement. I talked about this with Roy not too long ago, what the requirements are for sizing those local systems so that There's not a lot of flooding and people driving through water or low water crossings when in a small rain. Detention, like I said, what we are asking for from people here is to look at what's your impact downstream. Do you have an impact from your increased impervious cover? Because if you don't, detention might not be the right answer for you, but you're going to need to do an analysis, an engineering analysis to determine whether that happens or not. And so we have requirements for what that analysis looks like and how we are asking people to report it back for review to the community. And then finally, this is the one that we have just recently added. The first 5 chapters, really your engineering reviews for the last 2 years have been under that criteria. This 6th one we just added, and the thought here is that we have places where people are building things that are either not safe for the house itself in future development, or they, have issues that are causing increased impervious cover downstream. To me, one of the benefits here is that it minimizes the amount of lot-to-lot neighbor conflict that naturally happens in any kind of a community. So this gives us something to kind of fall back on when we look at that. And it sets the maximum slope for a driveway, and we match what the fire department requires so that in a ice storm or in a flood, if first responders needed to get to a residence, they could do it, is what we were thinking about there. And it also puts a requirement that a retaining wall greater than 4 feet tall needs to be designed by an engineer. It needs to not just be the blocks that you get at Home Depot and set up. It needs to have a real design with it that has looked at the soils in that specific area. So that's a super quick overview of what's in here. I brought with me the actual document in case you had any questions, but mostly I just kind of wanted you to know what was in it and what it is that we're using when we do reviews, engineering reviews of the things that come in.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for Kelly? Councilmember Hosea has a question. Now speak up, Frank.
All right. In existing neighborhoods,
Yes.
will you be able to determine with impervious ground, when a new house is built, you've got obviously the roof, the driveway. How will you be able to give us guidelines as to what the requirement for the ditches are going to be?
Yes.
And will we be able to say you can't build now because the ditch is not deep enough?
And so the intent here is that not every residential structure is going to have to go through that, but what's going to happen is if you have an existing lot and it has a house on it and you want to put in a pool, or you want to put in an appurtenant structure, you want to put in a shed, and it increases the impervious cover, then you have to do a study. You have to look at what's happening. So what we're saying is, if you don't make changes to what's there now, we're not making requirements of you. We're not going to make you do things. But if you're doing improvements on your lot, either a blank lot or a lot that is an increasing in impervious cover, then you have to do a study.
All right, then you do the study, but who's going to fix the problem?
So this really does not fix existing problems. But one of the things I was going to tell you about the hazard mitigation action plan that the Llano County Commissioner talked about, that plan is sort of your ticket to go ask the state for funds, for grant funds, to work on drainage projects. So existing drainage projects that are a problem really fall under the responsibility of the community. They don't fall with the individual lots.
So we'll have guidelines so we can budget for this then, correct?
Exactly.
All
Yes,
right.
that's right. We are also working on a drainage master plan, and what's in that drainage master plan are some costs of what in each watershed in Horseshoe Bay, what needs to be improved and how much should we expect it to cost. And the thing that we have talked about working on is looking at all of the needs for the city as a whole for your main channels, which ones take priority based on criteria. So that's one of the things we're going to work on to really inform what your CIP looks like every year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Have a question? I have a question. So, what we're ultimately headed toward, this has not been codified.
Jeff, I'm going to let you talk about that.
Yeah, we'll have the design manual and we codify and use that as our regulations for new construction. However, what we talked about in the past is that we're gathering this, or we're doing the modeling now for all the stream channels. And we're going to start in January to really look at the whole community on the existing problems, the ones that are existing. And of course, obviously, any new development comes in to ensure that the water gets safely to the lake. We know that we have problem areas because we've seen those in flood events. And so part of this is to try to not only determine what those are, is to try to determine a priority of projects that we will have that will add to our budgeting process in the future. That's when we start in January on the, after the basins are modeled and we have those prioritized. Then we're going to look within the community too on the other areas that are existing because of the original development and start down the road of trying to figure out what is our game plan. Some of that might be bar ditches being cleaned out and dug deeper. Some of that might be culverts. Some of that is road crossings that we know already that are dangerous. And it also gives us, like you said, in the design criteria, we're looking at when somebody is building next to a creek, we have the data now to go in there and say, your slab elevation needs to be high enough, to where you're not flooding. And as she says, with the hazard mitigation, which we've worked with FEMA on another project with our raw water projects, raw water pumps, we can utilize some funds from FEMA to help mitigate some of the flooding as we design and determine what's the priority for us.
So I want to say one more thing about where drainage criteria manual sits in the legal requirements. So the council adopts ordinances, and the subdivision ordinance points to your drainage criteria manual and says, you are legally required to follow this manual if you're going to develop in our community. The intent there was that at the staff level, you can make changes to that drainage criteria manual if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so this staff is excellent, and they say we're not making big changes without telling council about it. So I was going to show you one of the ones in particular. So Atlas 14 is a statistical analysis of how much rain falls in this area, what it defines a 100-year storm. Atlas 15 is about to come out. And so we wanted this to be nimble enough that if we need to make changes to keep up with the regulations that are changing and happening in the water resources world, that the staff has the ability to make those changes.
Okay.
And that's kind of how that all works together.
Okay. Good.
Are we able to identify, I know of multiple properties that are owned that we should never allow people to build on.
You don't have a published list like that or a stated list. I'm going to guess that
That's something we're going to have to work on.
your reviewers know about those.
We're going to have to do that.
And the intent really of what we put into chapter 6 is if you want to try to develop on that lot, then you have to show us that you can do it. And if it's too steep or, it shouldn't be developed for whatever reason, that will come to light in a manual, in a submittal and an analysis. And it's putting the onus on the developer to tell you we can't meet your criteria, as opposed to your staff saying to the developer.
I'm less worried about the future developments. I'm more worried about filling in spaces. Single families that will create
all manner of problems.
Okay.
This is intended, that's chapter 6 is for that very purpose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nobody has any further questions? Thank you so much, Kelly. We really appreciate this is something that we're all very concerned and aware of, because as the amount of impervious cover here increases, and we've 5 golf courses and a lake, drainage is something that we've got to pay attention to. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, are we ready to move on to public hearings? So the first public hearing is on ordinance 2025-01, amending Chapter 14 zoning, Article 14.02 zoning ordinance, Division 3 zones and classification, Zone 9, Escondido, Section 14.02, providing for findings of fact, repealer, and severability. I'm going to open the public hearing at 3:50. So Sandra Nash.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. This agenda item is not related to any particular piece of property, but actually related to all of Escondido, which is in Zone 9. And this is an amendment to the language or the text of our zoning ordinance. Lately, last few years, we've been getting homes in Escondido that are coming in over the required 6,500 square feet maximum that's in our zoning ordinance. They're coming in the 700 to 8,500 square feet. And every single one of them has to go to Board of Adjustment. The Escondido originally had 6,500 square feet in their CCRs as their maximum. But a few years ago, they went and took that out, realizing that they were also granting so many variances. And I must say that not a one of these has ever been turned down by the Board of Adjustment, because the board in the past has always felt that you should build the home that you want to build here in Horseshoe Bay. So when the city keeps receiving the same variance application, that could really be an indication that you need to maybe visit or revisit that section of your code. And so this was one of those items. And when we were revisiting it, we reached out and contacted the EDRC, the Escondido group, and they said, yes, we've already fixed it. We would like you to fix it in your code so that our CCRs and our zoning ordinance can be more closely aligned. Now, Lago Escondido, which is the small little portion up on the lake, they have a 9,500 square foot limit. And that was a good for Escondido, felt that would be good. We've not, other than one home on Lago Escondido, we've not had the houses really more than about 8,500 square feet. So we feel good about the 9,500. And quite frankly, anything larger than 9,500, we probably would want the board to just kind of look at. Those homes start to function a little bit differently in the community. So Escondido has asked us if we would do this, and through working it out, we've not received any public sentiment or any opposition that we're aware of to this. Okay. And we went to the Planning and Zoning Commission last month, and we had a full quorum. Actually, we had all 5 members there, and they voted unanimously to go ahead and make this change.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Council members, do you have any questions?
Just what is the square footage we're recommending it to be moved to?
No more than 9,500.
9,500, okay.
Thank you. And is there anyone in the public who wishes to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, being no further comment, we will close the public hearing at 3:53. And council, is any further discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 2025-1 as unanimously recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, so there's a motion by Councilmember Morgan. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Hosea. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. So the motion carries. Thank you. The next public hearing is ordinance 2025-02, amending the city's code of ordinances in Chapter 3, building regulations, Chapter 14, zoning, Chapter 14, Summit Rock Pro Shops, Sales Center, and Villas, Plan Development, and Appendix A, Fee Schedule, Article A3. I'm going to open the public hearing at 3:54. And Roy Jamber?
Yes, ma'am. This started as more of a stopgap measure to fix a couple of very obvious problems in this particular ordinance. The most obvious one was that, this is not unique to Horseshoe Bay, but there's a couple of zoning entitlements that, for whatever reason, when these things were invented about 30 years ago, that refer to themselves as permits when they're not actually permits. They're in fact zoning entitlements, which means they're attached to the land and not to the individual that the approval was granted. We confirmed with the city attorney that was in fact, what the Horseshoe Bay ordinance referred to was a zoning entitlement, and therefore the provision that refers to that as being non-transferable needed to be removed from the ordinance. There was another thing that is very common in other jurisdictions, that you're actually using a conditional use approval in order to approve temporary uses and put sunsets and conditions on them. That there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that explicit authority wasn't in your ordinance. So we took the opportunity to go ahead and add that. But like all the best laid plans, when we explained this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, they made a very reasonable recommendation to take the word permit out of the ordinance entirely. And so that's how it grew quite a bit, to simply quit referring to conditional use approvals as permits and instead refer to them as conditional use approvals. This caused a subsequent comment from the city council to ask about the original problem that they foresaw as being why this thing was tied to individuals. The idea that approval could lay out there for years and pop up, surprising the surrounding property owners. And once again, it's a very common thing. It's not original to me. It's a common language in most other ordinances that these special type approvals expire, either by voluntary abandonment, involuntary abandonment, or failure to implement them in a building permit within a certain period of time. So we added that language. Now, that language was not considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which explains why you have two different ordinance approval motions in front of you, because it wasn't considered by them. But, once again, when we do a comprehensive view of the entire zoning ordinance, we'll catch a lot more things like that and suggest you add them. But this one did seem appropriate.
Okay, and Roy, I just want to clarify for the council that we're not talking about the conditional use approval being expiring once the building has been, if this is something that was attached to a building, once the building is built, it's not going to expire. It's that if you give them a conditional use approval and then they don't use it, they don't build the structure, they don't do whatever it was that they've asked for a conditional use approval for, then that approval will expire within a year.
Or if they quit using it for that approval.
Right, or if they abandon
If
it.
it's a
Yes.
specific purpose and you abandon that purpose, it will then go away on its own.
And revert to whatever the zoning was prior to
Without
that
the
time.
conditional use approval. The same thing applies with the total hazard laws. If it burns to the ground and you have to start over, it goes away unless you rebuild within a year.
So I understand if we put, because that would be problematic. If someone asked for a conditional use permit for, let's say, personal storage in an office in an area, and this came up where there was no personal storage permitted, that would revert to office space, which that building would no longer qualify for office space because it didn't have enough parking or it didn't have whatever else was required that caused it not to qualify. So now we're in a tough spot. So can we then ask that instead of that, in addition to the conditional use, that we ask the applicant to include those conditions in their deed restrictions?
Well, we can put those conditions in the approval, because basically what you're describing, if he quits using it for the approved use, if you will, and he tries to use it for something that he doesn't have parking for, he's committing a zoning violation, which we would then cite him for. So that's the sort of language that you should put in the approval to make sure that if he's only meeting the parking requirement for that specific use, that when he quits using it, he can't use it for anything else. That needs to be in your approval. And if the staff is not asleep, we'll make sure it's in there.
Okay, and that's covered in the language of what you're proposing.
Right, that will be covered in whatever, in those kind of conditions. For example, you have a temporary approval that's out there right now that has that condition. They're in violation of that condition. We informed them of it. We sent them a notice of violation. They need to apply for a new approval or get cited. Or go explain it to Judge Madison.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions?
Did P and Z actually consider the non-use or abandonment?
Yes, we talked about everything except the expiration provision. That's the only thing that they didn't discuss.
consider one way or the other.
That didn't come up at the
That
P and Z
didn't come
meeting. It
up.
was
It got
something.
brought up because of the concern.
Mhm.
I said, well, one of the issues that you don't have covered that's normally covered is this expiration provision. And quite frankly, that applies usually to everything, especially except all these new tools that we developed about 30 years ago, so they're not that new. But, remember that the model planning and zoning ordinance was originated in 1927. So that's how old basic variances and zoning ordinances are. So the stuff we did in the 60s and 70s is still relatively new, but they typically include that provision. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Any other questions from council? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment on this? I apologize. Is it hot in here? Yep.
We'll be here tomorrow. It's broken. Jules.
Oh, we're getting a new city hall. I'm so sorry. I thought, yeah. Apologies on that. Okay, if there are no questions or comments from the public, we will close this public hearing at 4:01. And council, as you can see, there are two possible motions. The first one includes the unused or abandoned provision, and the second one does not. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to move to approve ordinance 2025-02 as unanimously recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but with one addition, and that's a provision that calls for the expiration of approval if unused or abandoned for 1 calendar year or more.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Morgan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And then we have a third public hearing. Now, this relates to the Lake Church. And so I'm going to ask the public if there's anyone who, the Lake Church, in order to be before the council, there's a public hearing, you have to do certain notifications. They missed some of their deadlines. So they're not ready for their approval yet. We're going to discuss it in November. But if there's anyone who came here today to comment on this subject, I want to open a public hearing to give you an opportunity to do that. Is there anyone here who wanted to speak to the Lake Church issue? Okay, then we will, we're going to defer this issue until the November meeting. I'm not going to hold a public hearing at this time on that. So thank you. Okay, business, sign variance request. This is on the Caprock Golf Academy. Who's going to discuss this from the staff? You again?
She pointed stronger than I pointed at her. So she won. Yes.
I noticed the sign's already up, so.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I knew the base was up. I didn't realize the sign.
Well, the sign's not there. The wording isn't there, but the sign's there.
Yeah. Technically, that's not a violation, but it sure is pushing the envelope a little bit. But, I guess that they felt entitled by the fact that this is, incredibly similar to a variance that's already been granted on another sign. It's virtually identical. The only thing we would mention is that it looks like there's some language in your ordinance that's a holdover from when sign ordinances were more typically included in the zoning ordinance, and yours is not. That means the variance is not subject to that statutory requirement for a physical hardship. We would like to, at some point in the future, take that language out, and don't be shocked when we bring it to you. And that way we can quit winking and nodding, because this is a pretty typical piece of property. And to meet that criteria as written, it should be something unusual about the property to justify this larger sign base. And this is more of a no harm, no foul standard, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the one that's in your ordinance. So we're going to fix that.
Okay.
Very near future.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
No.
Regarding this? Okay. And that's all you have to say. Well, then I guess we're ready for a motion if someone would like to make one.
I'll move to approve sign variance number 2024-01 for the on-premises monument sign at the entry of Caprock Golf Academy located at 712 Fault Line Drive.
I have a motion from Councilmember Jones. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Hosea. Any further discussion? I just want to add that this variance is really for width. It's wider. If it were taller, if it were going up higher, I think there would be a different answer. But it's a wider, and it does match the one that's at the Caprock entrance. So I don't think that anybody's too upset about it. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Resolution 2025, conditionally approving an increase to the maximum number of active speculative building permits in Tuscan Village. Okay, Roy again.
This is a renewal, if you will, with some more conditions on approval that applied to the entirety, of this Tuscan Village portion of the subdivision that was tied to a previous developer. That additional approval expired almost exactly a year ago, October 15th, 2023. So you've got a new entity that wanted to look at a similar increase. We were a little more specific. This one is limited to phase 1 and phase 2 only. Obviously, they have no ability to control how fast these things sell. So if they move into, there's a map in the resolution that shows you all these different groups that are in both phase 2 and phase 1. And we put a limit on there. If they still have 2 unsold, in a portion, in one group in phase 1, and they want to move back to phase 2 and move to phase 1, we put a limit on the distance that could be from one of the other spec houses. The idea was to make sure that they were all compressed in as small a space as possible. The traffic is more of a concern there. The size of the lots are more of a concern there. And this seemed to be a very rational reason to do that. This also will expire in 5 years. It does not include phase 3. They don't anticipate being able to go that far and build that many spec homes, over that small a period of time. So they'll be back to you if there's a desire to do anything more than 2 spec homes in phase 3.
In 5 years, it goes back to two
Yes, sir.
homes.
Well, but remember, the 2 homes applies to the individual contractor. This is geographic. So he can have 2 homes outside of this on top of these in this geographic area. The other thing that we brought up was based on a previous complaint about, traffic and who is responsible. If you guys get creditable evidence that people are not using the designated construction entry, you guys have the ability to bring it back and say, look, we're going to take this away from you because you're not playing by what we expect you to take care of.
So they are asking for how many speculative homes?
10 at one time plus the 1 model home.
And this is now Crescent. This isn't Legends anymore.
Correct.
Correct.
Well, that's a plus. Because if it was the Legends, I would have said no.
Ryan Cummings is here somewhere. And would you like to speak, Ryan? Not unless we have questions. Okay. But Ryan is here. Dale Stutz emailed us that he was at an event at Tuscan last week, I guess. And I guess he joined a number of the Tuscan people in coming down with COVID. So he's.
Yes. The biggest issue we had with Legends was, they paid variances. It was like a monthly deal. We had 3 to 4 properties that didn't build in the timeline. The biggest problem I have with this many speculative homes is the timeline for the construction of these homes, because it's impacting people that actually already live there. I know of 2 of them that were on number 14 that took almost 3 years. One of them had roof tiles from one member guest to the next member guest, and they still hadn't done it. Now that's Legends, that's not you guys. So my concern in here is the timing on the construction. If you've got 10 homes under construction and you've sold how many additional ones that aren't going to take one of these spec homes, do you have the facility, do you have the infrastructure to build those on a timely basis?
I'd say yes, sir. Based on our production in Golden Bear, I think we've built in a little over 3 years, over 40 homes in there.
Yeah, you've done a great job in Golden. That's why I'm saying this is not directed at Crescent. This is directed at Legends. And because you'll be the one that's coming back to us if you need a variance because you can't get it built, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll remember you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I don't see any difference in the build time between all of our other areas. We built a house in Applehead Island on the water with the pool and a dock in under 12 months. We average about 6 to 7 months in Golden Bear. This product's smaller. I think we'll probably average between 5 and 6 months.
That's my only concern.
Yes, sir.
And just on the time.
Okay. I've been building houses since 2004.
Okay.
I have a really strong and large construction base. I actually worked for Hatham Dowlett in Tuscan Village, kind of before and during, through COVID. So I do have experience there. I know why it failed and how to not do the same things.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I think that if the council grants this speculative expansion for you, we acknowledge that you will be building homes that are not speculative homes. So it's possible that you'll be building more than 10 homes at a time. And we trust you that you'll be able to not get out over your skis on what you can do. I think the incentive that we have to grant this is consideration for the people who live in Tuscan Village now, because for them to get this built and get it done and get you out of there is going to be getting them to their lives sooner. And so for us, there's an incentive to get that done. And we appreciate your willingness to use the construction entrance and not be interfering with their lives, the people who already live there, any more than you have to. And the discussions that I've had with you and with Dale, I know y'all are sensitive to that. And so we appreciate it, and we will be watching that.
All right, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Any other questions? Staff, any questions? Okay, then I will entertain a motion, which you might look at on page 45.
Move to approve motion, resolution 2025-04, including each of the conditions enumerated in Exhibit A, which is attached.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Morgan. Is there a second? Second from Councilmember Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, so this gets on to a request for an extension of a building permit from Everview Homes. Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Summerlin. I'm requesting a 60-day extension for a 511 windswept for us to complete the drainage and erosion plan.
I'm sorry, a 60-day for what?
To complete our drainage and erosion plan.
Okay.
So Mayor, the building itself is basically ready for CO, but at the time of the final CO inspection, there were some concerns about the drainage on site. And so that is what they need to make reparations to address the drainage and erosion issues. But the permit expired on the house in the interim. So we need to need to re-permit the site to have it active so they can then start their site work to make the reparations.
Where's Windswept? I don't know that street.
It's back up here, kind of in the High Mesa area back here, sort of kind of near the airport and all of that, kind of off of Clayton Nolan. And
Okay. All
yeah.
right. So this is a perfect example. Does our drainage plan, not to jump around.
Yeah.
This will be in accordance with our drainage.
That's correct. Yes, sir. This would have been if we'd had that drainage criteria in place when this was permitted, it would have taken care of this.
Okay.
So.
All right. That's what I needed to know.
Well, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of that. But in the end, your homeowner will have a home that will have a good drainage plan, and hopefully everybody will be happy with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, council? Okay, do I have a motion?
I don't know where it is, but.
Page 50.
I move to approve Everview Homes request third re-permit for 511 windswept for 60 days for $5,000.
Have a motion from Councilmember Morgan. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Councilmember Hosea. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you
Brett,
very much.
thank you.
And then the last business item is Resolution 2025-02, designating an official newspaper for 2025. Jeff, do you want to speak? You want me to?
I think,
Okay.
Our our legislative director is going to speak on it.
Legislative director and everything
many
else, yes.
titles.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Carrie, yes.
This is an annual decision the council has to make according to state law. We have to officially designate a newspaper that we publish our public notices in, our legally required notices. The local newspaper, the Highlander, falls under the category that the law allows us to. They meet requirements required by law, where the Beacon does not yet meet those requirements. Historically, we have selected the Highlander as our designated official newspaper. However, we also publish in the Beacon as well, since it's our community paper. And so this item is just up for your approval to redesignate Highlander as our official newspaper. And staff is asking council to decide if we're still going to continue to post in the Beacon as well.
What are we missing again with the Beacon?
Daily.
Oh, I would have to.
It's
And they-
the count in the circulation within the county. And the Highland has a higher circulation in the county.
It has to be daily, doesn't it?
And they have to charge. There's 4 different requirements they have to meet, and they don't. And because they're our community newspaper, we've historically also published there.
Not the-
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't put it in the Beacon, nobody would ever see the notices because,
Exactly.
you know, it'd be lost in there. So it's a little bit of an extra cost for the city, but it's good for us to support our local newspaper, the Beacon. So I just wanted you all to be aware of this.
Do we put in the motion, do we add the Beacon language or not?
You don't have to. The resolution includes language that we're going to continue to post also in the
Okay.
Beacon, so that's applied.
Okay, so would someone like to make that motion?
I will. I move to approve Resolution 2025-02, designating the Highlander as the official newspaper for the city of Horseshoe Bay for fiscal year 2025.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Hosea. Is there a second? Councilmember Jones, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now, on the consent agenda, item K, approval of an amendment and a change order to the street seal coating contract with Alpha Paving. We're going to remove that item from the consent agenda. Tim, we will, I'd like for you to explain why I'm removing that item, if you wouldn't mind.
So the original plan was to seal coat Bay West Boulevard and get a stripe down. We've run into cooler nights, limited time for roads to dry due in the morning. It's going to be a bad experience if we tried to seal coat this late and put the stripe down. So Alpha Paving is going to put the stripe down for us on the road that's there, and we'll redo it in the spring.
So they'll have to
Wait a
restripe
minute.
also?
But they're not going to charge us
That is
again for the
correct.
restriping.
Well, we're still going ahead with the stripe, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
And so we're not going to do this as a change order. We're going to just wait and let it be part of the contract next year.
So the seal coating, yes, ma'am, will fall under the contract of next year. The striping is already in the budget for last year.
Okay, good. Thank you,
But we
Kim.
were also waiting the delay with Rio. So it's just put us into a dangerous time.
Rio's completely done then.
Not quite, but getting very close.
How about those orange sticks that stick up? Are they still there? And what do they do? And are they temporary?
Orange sticks are probably not, they're not Rio. I think
Yeah, they
those
are.
No, they are.
Yes,
It's
they are.
Rio.
Okay.
Are they?
They're line locators. Fred is very
We're
unhappy
gonna-
with the way they look, so he would
And-
like to cut them down.
Okay, let's come back to that when we're doing staff reports.
Okay.
So on the consent agenda, is there anything council else that you would like to have removed to discuss? Okay, so then I will entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda without item K.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written with the removal of item K.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Hosea. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Morgan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move to monthly reports. And the first one is Jeff Kuska. We're trying to move through this. It's hot.
Yeah, move quick 'cause it's
Sorry.
hot. Okay, so I wanted to report back that we were at the TML conference in Houston last week and got a lot of good information that will be transferred to the council, from everything from public comment to the passing of our recommendation to TML to push legislation having to do with broadband within our right of ways to get some funding back. Just to put that in kind of a synopsis, over the last 5 years, we've gone from about $37,000 of revenue as the cable systems are being replaced with fiber optics. They're not subject to franchise fees, but they're still putting fiber optics within our community to provide internet service. And so we wanted to provide some legislation that allowed us to recover money no matter what the wired process is, whether it's cable or fiber optics, to be able to receive funding for use of right of ways for profit. It's also a constitutional requirement that we do not give property away free. And that was one of the things that we kind of brought up with TML. And so they're going to move forward. So the next phase is to take it to a committee that's dealing with the network and the communications, which is next month, then to find an author for the bill and construct a bill. And so we'll be right there in the middle of that. So that's pretty much the TML process. I do wanted Tim to come back up and talk a little bit about the streets. We've already talked about that, but if there's anything else, and also to give a little bit of update on kind of where we are in the park. And then followed by that, I'd like to have Doug to talk a little bit about our fire danger and kind of what we initiated, and also the hurricane that just came through and kind of where we stand on that. So.
Jeff, can you tell the council where we are on the city center?
Oh, yes. Yes. On the city center, we have all the approvals that we need to construct. Y'all notice that there's a fence up, a security fence around there. So construction is starting now. And we expect it to be done still around December of next year. So we're moving through that process. The one thing that I am still working with LCRA on is the lease on the 6 acres. We just about have that kind of hammered out, but I need to talk to you about some of the options with their.
Okay. And what about the fire station?
And the fire station's right behind it. We're working on the last approval on that, which is LCRA approval, and that will start, I would think, in November.
Y'all have any questions for Jeff? I just want to really congratulate Jeff and Carrie on the success they had at TML with the broadband initiative that our city brought to the TML conference, thanks to Frank. Frank brought this up and really highlighted for us that this was something important that we needed to pay attention to, and we need to get the rest of the cities to pay attention to. And there were a couple of cities who sort of feebly objected, but Jeff just shot them down.
It was just one, I think. Yeah, and it was a person that was worked for I think Verizon, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. But I do know that the vote after when they took the vote, it was almost unanimous across the city. So it was very good.
That's big.
Go Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah.
Very big.
More to come. Okay, so Tim, would you talk a little bit about kind of your pavement projects and also the park?
Sure. I'll move this along. I know we have a long meeting to go. So the roads are coming out very nicely. We should be paving out in Horseshoe Bay West with those streets that we have out there within the next week. So those will be done. We've already started transferring equipment up to the airport area. We'll be starting on Cap Rock first. So, approximately 8 weeks after that, we should have pavement up there as well. So that's moving along very well. We are going to seal coat a very small area from the traffic circle down to the yacht club now that the tower, the Waters buildings are complete. We've been kind of waiting on that so that we didn't seal coat and have them ruin that. Or not ruin it, but drive all over it and ruin it.
Ruin it.
So that's a lot smaller areas. we can divide that up a lot easier, do little blocks per day, which will give us plenty of time in the morning to warm up the asphalt, still give us dry time during the day so that we can reopen them for the nighttime. So we will be getting that done. The new restrooms are open.
Oh, yeah.
With the thanks to the utilities department, they were going to do a butterfly garden down in Martin Park somewhere. We think we're going to incorporate that in the new area where the restrooms are. Irrigation's back up and running. We have plans for landscaping. The pavilion is laying on the ground. They should be here tomorrow to start assembling that. As the mayor knows, that's a multi-year project. We're going to get as much done with what we have in our budget. And then over the next few years, we can fancy it up. We've talked about many ideas. Jeff and I have already ways to improve it. So we're well underway, and everything's going smooth.
All right. Any questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim. Okay. Are there any other board report? Oh, yeah. We've got Doug. He's got a big one.
Unfortunately. Mayor, Council, appreciate the time today. I got 3 things I need to brief you on. First one has to do with high fire danger. National Weather Service has issued a fire danger statement for our region. An incoming cool front will lower the relative humidity well below 20%, which increases the risk of fire. This looks to be only for the next 48 hours, and then weather conditions affecting relative humidity will improve. Given the expected weather conditions, the fire department has taken the following actions. The contract mowing will be curtailed shortly after or approximately 11 a.m. each day for the next 2 days. Weed eating and line mowing is unaffected by that. Brush trucks will shadow engines between noon and 8 p.m. each day. That means if you see an engine go out, you're going to see the brush truck following it. And that is the intent to minimize our response time if anything occurs. And then the third thing is within our region, fire chiefs have directed Marble Falls Dispatch to, if they have a grass brush or a wildfire, to dispatch the South End Task Force, which is 5 brush trucks and 1 or 2 water tankers. So in essence, you get a brush truck from Horseshoe Bay and Marble Falls Volunteers, Marble Falls Fire Rescue, Granite Shoals, and Spicewood. That's something that we've worked out amongst ourselves, so that way we can hopefully minimize anything that may come before us. Lander County Commissioners Court issued a countywide burn ban effective today. Burnett County issued a countywide burn ban on September 24th. The level of fire weather danger is impacted by temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, and current level of drought. Burnett County is moving towards the severe drought state, closely followed by Llano County. And that's why we are taking these actions. The second item I wanted to brief you on was that we had been approached by numerous residents who wanted to make donations, and specifically some wanted to see if we could revive the fireboat. And so we spent the last couple of months looking at our various options and decided that we would keep it simple. The law allows for people to make a donation to the government. It is tax deductible, which was the biggest thing the donors were worried about. So we have that. And so the first item we're looking to get is the fireboat. It's about a $300,000 price tag. So not sure how long it's going to take, but that's going to be what we're working towards. Third item is deployments. The fire department, along with other fire departments in the region, has applied to the state of Texas and recently been approved to participate in the Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System. Just prior to Hurricane Milton making landfall in Florida last week, members of the Horseshoe Bay Fire Department were placed on standby for a possible 21-day deployment to Florida. Had the deployment occurred, members deployed from our region, there was, because of ample resources in the neighboring states, there was no requirement or need for our region to deploy. Had the deployment occurred, any member deployed will be paid by the state of Texas. Deployed members would be backfilled through overtime, again paid for by the state of Texas. The purpose of our participation in the Texas Interstate Fire Mutual Aid System is to gain valuable experience in mitigating disasters caused by severe weather and wildfire. That experience will better prepare our firefighters for risk posed in our region. Participation is voluntary, and the city will not be overburdened nor placed in a disadvantaged staffing position. Any questions you may have?
Any questions? You know, I really am glad we're doing this, and I think it would be great if, you know, if our firefighters end up going to some disaster relief somewhere. Only 5% of our fires, our calls are fires. So these guys train all year long, and they go out on medical calls. So this is an opportunity for them to put their training into use in a real actual environment. And there's just nothing. You can't train. You can train and train and train, but it's not the same as doing it. So I think it's going to really benefit our firefighters, and it's not going to cost us any money.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Thank you very much, Chief.
That's all I have.
That's all you have. Okay. Then that brings us to no other staff members have reports. Okay. That brings us to the end of the agenda. And so at 4:31, we will move into executive session. We will come out of executive session, and if there's any action to be taken, we will vote at that time. Unfortunately, as you all know, this is where we meet for executive session. I wish we had a cooler place.
Outside is a cooler place.
Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate the community support and involvement.
No.
Oh, Buck?